What's going on, YouTube? My name is GinJ-TCG, or Chris, and today I'm back with another Battle VIPs podcast, joined by my co-host, Avery. What's good, Avery?
Absolutely. How are we doing this fine October 10th at 9:38 p.m.? We got some things to say.
We have a lot of things to say.
We got words.
First and foremost, still missing Josh. Guy has, I think, as many podcast appearances as Rich, and he's a host. So, Josh, get it together, big dog. Yeah, all right, now that I've called him out, I mean, I'm going to just jump into the top 7.
All right,
cool.
Let's do it.
So, in the 1 is you. I don't want to talk about it. I want the next one.
All right, y'all. So, you already know what's going down with Raging Bolt. I can feel the body temperature rising when I speak upon this card. People will sit here and they'll be like, well, Cham Power is as much of a turbo deck. No, it's not! It just isn't, okay? Raging Bolt is literally manual attached, the earthen vessel for like 2 grass, throw them in the discard pile, manual, like, it's just Sada manual attach. I use 3 ogre pawns and I blow up your active, alright? I gotta find Buddy Pull and get down a Frigipax, maybe 2. I hope I get Era the next turn. I need to make sure I get my energies from my deck. I gotta make sure I don't get Iono'd, because if I get Iono'd, that's gonna throw me over. When you're playing Raging Bolt, you don't need to worry about that too much, because you play hella copies of everything that you're ever gonna possibly need.
Sada, Palpad, Pokegear, Ogre Pawns.
Yeah,
you're
you
getting
guys
your
are
hand
never.
back. Pheasantipity.
You're never going to lose a hand and be like, shucks, I'm never getting that back.
You're
gonna get it back
Sada
next turn.
Get another one. Like, you know, it's
it's and I hope you play my Pokestops, and I hope I see at least 2 Sada. I really do, because like you guys
don't hit 2 Sada Palpad though. Like, it's just it's like, Raging Bolt.
That's Raging Bolt. You guys get what you want when you need it, and it's upsetting because I gotta, like, I'm still, like, I'm playing, like, GM Pow is already, like, a tier 3 now with, like, newer cards that are getting revealed, alright? I'm going through it.
I feel that.
Y'all are only getting stronger, and I don't like it.
But that's what's insane, actually, and that brings up something I was, like, when I was looking through these decks, Raging Bolt, although it's, like, a known archetype, you know what I mean? And I feel like archetypes always change a decent bit, like a solid bit, with new formats and new cards, especially, like, I feel like, whatever we're in, whatever the name of the format is, Stellar Crown, there's so many cards that came out that were absolutely busted. Only 2 of them have actually made their way into Raging Bolt. I feel like most lists, not even all of them play Crispin, but I feel like most will play 1 Crispin, 1 Briar. And that's it. Like, other than that, it's the same exact 58 cards that we've seen since Ogre Pond came out. Like, this list is, I feel like, just so perfected at this point. It's like every time the format changes, like a new set comes out, Raging Bolt falls lower because everyone else is playing everything else. And then now it's been a few weeks, you know, we kind of know what the meta is, we know what it looks like, and now we've got Raging Bolt back on top. If you're not watching and you're just listening, the stat line for it, it's at a 12.1% overall play rate, which I believe is the most right now. I forgot it. It's like top 2 most played decks. 12% win rate, 12.5% top 4, 12.2% top 8 win rate in the past 2 weeks. I mean, this deck is just tearing it up right now. It's I feel like over the past 2 weeks, there's more decks that have won tournaments and like placed well. And so all of the decks have dropped in percentages, but this one clears. With this and the number 2 deck, clear in terms of, like, placing in tournaments with 50 or more people. So, I don't know. It's Raging Bolt is doing Raging Bolt. The format's settled, which means naturally Raging Bolt and Lugia are kind of going to go back up on the rise because people know what to expect and know that these decks just work.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest things about Raging Bolt as far as, like, I can give it. It's one of the most refined and optimized decks out there.
Yeah.
And other decks like Golden Go and GM Power are still, like, trying to find the 60 that can hold up with it. And it's just not going to happen. No. Raging Bolt does more damage, quicker, faster,
and it is
stronger.
With Briar, like, there's nothing. If you're playing an Evolution Turbo deck like that, like, obviously Chimpao doesn't evolve like Gold Dengo does, but you have Excalibur. Like, if you're just dealing with decks with Briar, like, I feel like that really cooks the, like, Turbo decks that relied on going first to evolve and then get cooking. Like, it's too slow, and even with the chance of catching up now, you have to deal with Briar in late game. It's like, I don't know how you get around that.
Yeah, I've honestly considered putting it down, just getting myself, like, a battle deck or something, and just getting, like, a Dustmore line. Like,
I don't blame you. I mean, my pick on the like ladder, and if I was to do an online tournament tomorrow, like is the next deck, which I feel like I never play a top 7 deck. But I mean, if you don't mind, we'll just jump into it. Number 2, Snorlax Stall. Like it's insane right now, and I feel like this happens so much too when formats get complacent and people stop teching for problematic decks. Snorlax Stall does amazing, and Pidgeot control, like all types of control, thrive. And I feel like this is the perfect time to play any sort of control deck, doesn't matter what type. And I think what's nice about Snorlax Stall is it's just so simple, and people hate it so much that it does so much better than it should. Because no one will ever tech for it. Like, this isn't my list, you know? Like, I made the video on it recently. If you haven't watched the video, definitely go watch the video. But, like, Sandshrew is, I think, an absolute must-have at this point. I think with the popularity of Lugia, kind of coming back up the ranks, like, Temple of Sinnoh, I played 2 copies. I think 3 is necessary at this point, minimum. But yeah, Snorlax Stall has everything. It hasn't changed much at all, I feel like, in Stellar Crown. In terms of, like, new cards coming into it, obviously there's, like, two copies of Ogre-Capon Mimikyus, but that's because, like, if you go back to Raging Bolt, you can just wall off the whole deck with 2 Mimikyus. That's it. You know, like, you don't even need Snorlax to take that matchup, which is insane. So, yeah, I love this deck. I think this is a perfect pick for tournaments right now, and I think this would be kind of my go-to.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much else I could really add on to that.
Yeah.
Stall is one of those decks that, like, as you said, when people get complacent and they start realizing that, like, there's more decks in the format. Like, what are the chances that I'm going to run into Stall when Stellar Crown format has, like, 3 new major
decks? 3.6% overall play rate. Like, that is so low. Like, if you're going to a regional and you're worried about teching for Stall, like, it's fair. But if you also looked me dead in my eyes and was like, I'm not teching for Stall because I don't expect to run into it, I can't blame you for that if that's a conscious choice. Obviously, if that is a conscious choice, you're accepting that if you do run into it, you're screwed. But, like, it's not, like, you know, it's not Raging Bolt. It doesn't have a 12% play rate. It's got a 3% play rate. And there's so many decks that have so much higher play rates. Like, yeah, I don't blame you or anyone else for not teching Stall. I just get upset when people scream about it and refuse to acknowledge that it is a good deck. And it's not, there's cards in it that are busted, but the actual Snorlax card is not busted in itself. It's like Erica's Invitation and stuff that's, like, disgusting. And, like, Pokeflute, or Accompanying Flute. Yeah.
Retreat block has always been a thing in the game, even since, like,
was it
as far as you can
Black
remember.
And White, right?
Yeah, like people need to stop realizing. Not, I'm wording it wrong. I'm sorry, but like people need to understand that like something like this is still a thing. It is still a threat. It will absolutely annihilate you if you can't deal with it.
Yeah.
But to also sit there and say things like, "What are the chances I run into Stall?" and then you're gonna run into Stall and you're gonna be upset. Is way too much. It's like when Thorns won Worlds and everyone was crying about how busted Thorns is. It's a coin flip deck.
It's just not respected.
It's not.
Yeah.
You need to respect everything that is in the meta.
Yeah.
And if you don't respect what's in the meta, you're going to get beaten by the meta. Sure, there's rogue things that you can do that can beat the meta, but if you're not going to at least adhere to what's in the top 7 here, and not understand those are likely matchups, then you're going to sit there and you're going to cope on Twitter and you're going to cry and I'm going to see it and I'm going to tell you in your comment section that,
I love that. And it's not saying that our top 7 is the top 7. Like, this is without an argument, like, these are the top 7 decks. It's just that these are good enough to be in someone's top 7. And I feel like we spend a lot of time trying to make sure we get a solid top 7 out there, which I think proves to the point that you need to respect every deck. I feel like any YouTuber's top 7, top 10, top 5, whatever they do, you know, their tier list. Just because if it made it onto someone who's trying to promote, like, you know, their ideas, their thoughts on what's doing well, clearly it's doing well. Other people are going to watch it, probably agree with them, and play, you know, maybe change their pick to one of the decks that are talked about. And I think Stall is tearing it up online. It has won 12% of tournaments. It is tied for the most tournaments won in the past 2 weeks. I mean, it is insane, with like some of the highest top 4 and top 8 percentages as well, at 7.5 and 8.8 respectively. I just think there's a lot of misguided anger with this deck. I think people place all of their rage into Snorlax Stall, and like you said, there is always a block retreat type card out. And I feel like a lot of them have been Snorlax because it's Snorlax. But you know what I mean? Like, there's always kind of one in the format. I think the anger should be placed in cards like Erica's Invitation and Accompanying Flute. You know, like before, like when I first created this deck, I had to use Pulling Current's Manaphy to pull cards out of your hand. or, you know, we had to use Mantike now to pull cards out of discard. Like, when you had to use other attackers and sack prize cards, or, you know, one or two if you're using Iron Hands and stuff, okay, then it's like the deck is more balanced. But I think it's cards like Erica's Invitation and Accompanying Flute that make this deck disgusting and make it way more cracked than it should be. You know,
also,
like,
things like Misfortune Sisters.
I think that's good for stall, and I don't hate it. I think Avery and Misfortune Sisters. Oh, that was the other reason actually I wanted to mention why I think stall is so perfect right now, especially for a bigger tournament like a regionals. Like, we talked about how there's a huge issue with tying. Like, ties were losses in the new you know, the new like system. I think stall is perfect because I think stall with Misfortune Sisters and Eri and Xerosic's Machinations, I think that is the huge card for that trifecta to make stall aggressive enough to guaranteed finish one game, and then when you win that best of one, you could just choose to not use Xerosic's Machinations and Misfortune Sisters and just use Ares and Pennies to slow your opponent while also full healing yourself and stall that second game out. You know, like, I think this deck is actually a very, very perfect and a very smart pick to a regional now, because you could easily finish a game in 50 minutes with Xerosix. You know what I mean? Like, your opponent will run their hand very big, and if you just tell them get rid of 80% of it, I feel like you don't need, like, Chi Yu or whatever to mill cards, because you could just Iona them to 6, and that's what's left in their deck. So yeah, no, I think stall is in a very, like, it's aggressive, and I like it. It's in a good spot. Cards in it are too overpowered, sure, but it would be my pick.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me that, tomorrow, 8 p.m., be here for Limitless, I'm going to pick stall.
Yeah, me too. The only thing there's two things I'd really change from this list. I would be taking out one Temple of Sinnoh, and I would be putting in one Sandshrew. I think Sandshrew is so busted right now. Because, like, go back. We've only talked about one deck, and we literally were making fun of, like, Palpad Sada. Sandshrew stops you from putting trainer cards back into your deck. So it stops Eileen, stops Palpad, stops like all those type of recovery cards, and it solos your mirror matchup when you're playing it in stall. So I would take out one Temple of Sinnoh for Sandshrew, and with this list, I would take out Hero's Cave, put in Secret Box. I don't know if you saw my video. I pulled a double Secret Box play after Silening it back, and it made me, I don't know how that never crossed my mind, but oh my god, was that busted. Like, that was insane.
That was one of the plays I've ever seen, and I'm so glad I got to see that.
Yeah, like, I loved it. I think, I don't know. I think stall is a great pick, great lock to play right now. Definitely look into it. Give it a go.
Give it a shot. Don't hate the player, hate the deck.
Facts. Hate the game for making this as cracked as it is, but it's here, and there's people playing Raging Bolt, so you might as well play this. Like, you know,
Be mad at them. Make them cope.
Real. Jumping on to number 3. We got, if you want to take this one, if not, I can. I know you're not a big fan of it.
It's not that I'm not a big fan of Lugia, I just don't like Cinccino as an attacker. Like, before Cinccino and all that, Lugia was fun to play and play against.
That's fair.
Even if it had, like, powerful energies that you would attach 4 of and hit for 280. You know, Lugia was one of those decks that, like, the day it came out, I was, this funny story, actually, I was going to build this, like, new version. And I'm like, why do I have 4 alt art and 4 gold Lugias? What happened?
He was building this version like 2 weeks ago, mind you, or like 3 weeks ago. Like, this was very recent.
And I was like, oh, yeah. And when Silver Tempest came out, I was playing Lugia. And now I'm looking at this abomination of a list and remembering that, like, I don't like Lugia anymore. You play 1-2 Cinccino, and you play, or not 1-2, sorry, you play 2-2. I forgot that they use a different art, the optimal.
Well, it's the HP difference, because the Call for Family is cracked, but Dragapult exists, so 70 HP is also a necessity. Yeah.
But the whole point of Lugia is you want to make sure that on turn 1 you start off with a Lugia or and have a Minccino on bench. Either or, it doesn't really matter as much. You would prefer to start with a Lugia and have the Minccino on bench, but it's whatever. You want to make sure that you're playing your Capturing Aromas and you're hitting heads, I think it is, for an evolution.
Capturing Aromas. I'm thinking Capturing Energy. Sorry, we were talking about Powerful Energy. I'm like, that's a throwback. I was like, what? That energy rotated. No, you're right. You want Tails, though. You want Tails for basic at the start.
Yeah, you want to make sure you get your Lugias and your Mincinos with it. But if you can get yourself a Archeops or 2 on your first turn and somehow get a way to discard them with Ultra Ball. Like, if you start with an Ultra Ball, you're going to want to make sure that you get at least 1 Archeops in the discard pile, and you can Ultra Ball the Archeops and something else for a Lugia V-Star, and then next turn you're swinging real hard.
Just take
research, throw your whole hand away. Maybe get an Ultra Ball and Archeops in your next hand.
Exactly,
But the reason Lugia is so cracked, and I'm sure you guys all know, is because of the ability. Put two normal type Pokemon that don't have a rule box from your discard pile onto your bench. You throw on two Archeops. Archeops lets you search for two special energies and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. So that is what makes it Lugia.
Swing 70 damage per special energy,
yeah.
minimum 280 with double Archeops, and you're clearing any stage 2 once you use that 5th manual attachment on the Chinchino.
Yeah, Chinchino is probably the best attacker in this deck. If you're going to have a Pokemon that isn't Lugia to attack, it's Chinchino, 70 for each special energy.
Yeah.
And that is an insanely busted attack. You have Legacy Energy in here to attach to Iron Hand.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Being able to play that is so insane. Also, you could put it on Iron Bundle and lock out evolution Pokemon from attacking if you're up against Charizard and they fill their board. Like, there is a lot of, like, you know, like, this is one of those decks where, again, like, a new person could pick this up, totally run it. But when you really play it and, like, take it to that next level, like, you can really open up the door to, like, some interesting one-of tech cards, but also, like, sneaky attackers to pull some big plays. So, like, yeah, Iron Bundle's Suedo Gust. But also, low-key, it's, like, Charizard counter if you just need to buy yourself a turn to, like, you know, get a Minccino set up or something like that and just kind of make it awkward for your opponents to play the game.
Exactly. There's a lot of things that you can probably put in Lugia, and we're probably going to get more with this next Surging Spark set. There's just a lot going on for Lugia, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Now I'm here for it.
Yeah, and it's doing well. Like, it's the overall play rate's only at 5.1, which is higher than last 2 weeks ago. It's definitely going up in play rate. It's tied for most wins in a tournament with Snorlax Stall and Raging Bull. Its top 4, top 8 percentage is a little lower, and that might be due to the famous Lugia brick. Like, it's just, I guess the consistency is lacking the most out of these top 3 decks, but even then, it's not like consistency is that big a problem for it. Like, people make fun of it for having Lugia hands and bricking all the time, but with this deck's track record of destroying regionals since the day it's came out, like, clearly it doesn't brick that much. Like, you're okay. Like, this is a good pick. This is a very safe pick, especially if you're kind of getting into the game now. I would look into a deck like this, because it's also going to have the longevity behind it, where until these cards rotate, it's going to be cracked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're planning to play Lugia, watch our whole ready, play the deck, and then you'll understand why it's actually as good as it is.
Facts. Into number 4, we got Pidgeot Control. So this
is all you.
Thanks.
This is all you. I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to break this one down because this is a hot mess, but it's got everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything and the kitchen sink plus the whole apartment and your neighbor's apartment. Like, there is everything in this deck. Terms of numbers, just gonna spit those out, get them over with. Very low play rate, just like Snorlax Stall. We're sitting at 3.5, but it has taken down 10% of tournaments. I think it's got a lower top 4, top 8 because this deck is insanely hard to pilot. It's got 5.5% top 4, 4.5% overall in the past 2 weeks for top 8. And I think that's because when you play Pidgeot Control, you have to know exactly what counters every Pokemon. If you're not watching and you're just listening, this deck has obviously Pidgeot EX because it's a Pidgeot Control deck. This one surprisingly doesn't play one of Snorlax Stall, like Block Stall Snorlax, but like my version of Pidgeot Control does. A lot of people opt to put it in because it's just a nice card to sit behind. Mine also plays like Mimikyu and stuff like that, but this one specifically here plays Greninja EX, Farafrig EX, Ogre, oh my god, what is it? Wellspring Ogerpon EX, Cornerstone Ogerpon EX, as well as Blood Moon Ursa Luna, all as potential attackers or like stall type cards. And it's like, this is why I like stall over Pidgeot Control. I feel like Pidgeot Control is just a much more extra way to play stall. Like, if you look at stall, you've got Mimikyus for rule box, Ogerpons for like Charizard essentially, and stall, like block stall for everything else. This deck has all of those in different fonts. It's got Farigiraf EX for like your Raging Bolt matchups. You've got like Cornerstone Ogerpon to use for like your Charizard matchups, but then you get into Greninja EX and Wellspring Ogerpon, which you can use into your evolving type decks like Dragapult and stuff, where sometimes those decks could struggle a little bit, or into like Lugia, which is a notably bad matchup for a stall. Like, this deck could hang a little bit better because you've got tanky Pokemon, you've got the option to heal them with Turo and Search It Easy, and you could snipe Pokemon on the bench, so you're able to kind of snipe those Archeops before the game ends. And I think where Pidgeot thrives, where a stall might fall apart, is you could legitimately finish 3 matches with Pidgeot Control because you're actually playing in an aggressive manner with a deck like this to take prizes. So you've got the Greninja EX and Ogerpon to snipe Pokemon. You can more than attack with Farigiraf EX. You don't have to worry about a Gust Loop because it's ability based. And then you've got Blood Moon Ursaluna as just a kind of late game, place it down, swing, you get hit, you penny scoop it up, put it back down, swing, hit, and you just do that until you're comfortable. So this deck has a lot going for it. It's got a lot in it. This might be one of the hardest decks to play, to pilot, to understand. Because it's not just taking prize cards. You have to know your opponent's deck better than your opponent while also taking prize cards. So, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That was Pidgeot Control.
Yeah, I don't play this for that exact reason.
I love decks like this so much.
Yeah, I love looking at the list and I'm like, this is like who thought of this?
If you want to watch someone really good at Pidgeot Control, amazing content creator, seems like a really nice guy. I'd love it if you watch these videos. Please hit me up so you can get on this podcast. Watch All Out Blitzel. All Out Blitzel has been coming up with the best and newest Pidgeot Control decks for, gosh, probably like since Pidgeot came out. I mean, it started with I don't know if you remember the Pidgeot EX with Wigglytuff and Cloth EX in it. That was from All Out Blitzel. Like, All Out Blitzel, I feel like, is always the like cornerstone for taking Pidgeot Control in these online tournaments and guiding it in crazy directions like this and doing something insane with it. I don't know if this is his list, but I wouldn't be shocked if it is. Like, this would be his.
You said cornerstone.
What did I do?
Cornerstone.
Oh. Epic pun. Totally did that on purpose. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add on to that. It's number 4. I think it's got a great matchup spread. It's hard, so it's not number 1, 2, or 3, but it's there. Yeah, cool.
It's you have to be a master of the game if you want to play this deck.
Or just like really depressed. Like, I don't know if I'm like, a master of the game, but I have my moments where I'm like, I hate everything, almost including myself, so I might as well play Pidgeot Control. So
I had a miserable day, so I'm gonna put that onto someone else, and I'm gonna make
myself more angry because I also could barely figure out this deck. Like, that's kind of what you have to be. Yeah.
I'm gonna piss you off and me off.
We're both gonna hate this, but I'm gonna do this for the next 3 hours. Like, yeah.
I'm gonna play this, and you're gonna concede, or you're gonna deal with it.
Or I'm gonna concede because I'm not upset. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Pidgeot Control. Gotta love it. On to number 5.
And here we
Dragapult Dusknoir. You can take this one. I think I did the last 2.
All right, Dragapult Dusknoir. At this point, you should already know that Dragapult is an insane attacker. It was slept on at the beginning of Stellar Crown, but I mean, if you look at the overall percentages, only 4.1% of people are piloting this, except for Jose is that 4.1%.
No, that's because there's this and Dusknoir Pidgeot. Those are actually 2 completely separate builds. So this one prioritizes the 2-1-2 line of Dusknoir and a 1-1 Pidgeot, whereas the Pidgeot build is more popular, has a worse matchup spread, but it has a 2-2 Pidgeot and then a 1-1-1 Dusknoir line. Yeah, so there's actually, like, if you look at Dragapult as a whole, it is one of the most popular decks, probably most 3, but I think this one has a much bigger, like, divide in the play style of it, if that makes sense.
Got you.
Yeah. And I think this build specifically is much better.
Yeah, just from looking at the list, this thing actually looks insane. I mean, you already know what Dragapult does. 2 energy for 200, puts 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon. Yeah. Now, what do we do with... What else do we have that manipulates and deals with bench damage? We have quite possibly the biggest mistake that we'll get into in a little bit. We have Dusknoir. Just knock it out, drop 130 on whatever, like it's nobody's business.
Or
Terra Pokemon don't get the bench damage reduction because it's damage counters, whatever. It's not from attack either. You have Pidgeot EX to search out whatever you need. We already know that. Tatsugiri, look at the top. Is it top 7? For
6.
Yeah.
Top 6.
Top 6. Okay, so it's Pokegear minus 1 card. It's whatever.
But it's an ability. It's a great lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to start with. If you have that in the active and you have a way to switch out.
Or even, like, start your turn with. It's not even necessarily you have to lead it. It's more just like, hey, you got to make sure you're playing the game. Throw it on the bench, smack the rescue board on it, and always just, they KO a Pokemon, promote Tatsugiri, and just lead your turn with this. Yeah, it's not useless after the first turn. It's great the first turn, but it's also, like, just play it. It really does help the playstyle a lot. Yeah, I think the one thing this list doesn't have, which I find interesting, is not one copy of Crispin. I think Crispin is a great one of in this deck. I don't think Briar's totally necessary because you've got a lot of single prizers and 2 prizers, so you're not always on that, like, perfect prize card number. You're not always at, 2 for the Briar? You're not always there, and it's hard to pull off sometimes. But I think Crispin is a nice one of. Since there's not a high Pidgeot count, there's no Xatu in this list, obviously. I think a one of Crispin. I don't know what I would cut for it. I would have to play this deck a lot more to figure it out, but maybe a Nest Ball since you play Heavy Ball, Buddy Buddy Poffin, and Ultra Balls. Like, maybe, not sure. I don't know what I would do with that, but Crispin I think could be a big addition to this deck, possibly.
Yeah, Crispin is just an insane card. I mean, like, I don't think there's anyone that's really debating that.
No.
Just being able to attach for your turn. It's not even for your turn. It's just, like, attach an energy card.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was before, and I got corrected.
Yeah.
So
No, it's the
good.
attach one, and then for Dragapult, use your manual attach to Dragapult. Like, okay, you took Psychic Fire, you Crispined one, you manual attach the other, boom, Dragapult's ready. And pair that with
and you're
Sparkling
swinging.
Crystal, and you're fine. Like, you've got two large attackers that are going to be very hard to go through. Yeah, no, great deck. I think it's in a solid spot. I think finally Dragapult. I feel like it's funny. You said it like didn't start well. I feel like Dragapult always has such underwhelming. Like, people will hype it up the most going into new sets. It'll be the most underwhelming deck in the world, and then all of a sudden we're looking at it now. We're like, oh, this deck, like, I hate it. It's amazing. Like, it's so good.
People figured out how to play again.
Yeah, yeah. Like, oh, we spent some time thinking about it, and I really wish we didn't. Like, yeah.
I just imagine that, like, the entirety of Dragapult players are, like, at that big table at, like, a congress or something, and they're all just sitting there pondering for, like, the first 2 weeks.
So
They got a
true.
big ass projector in the middle of the room they're pointing at what the meta
They
is.
pulled up to the 7-Eleven in the corner, and we're just brainstorming in a 7-Eleven, cracking out Dragapult.
They got that little table. They got a table in the corner. They're paying off the owner to practice there. Like, it's Dragapult players are different breeds of people, but I love it. Oh, you guys are awesome people. Your deck just upsets me.
Real. I like this build of it though. I think this build is more fun than playing against Pidgeot, because as annoying as Dusknoir is, which we'll talk about, I think Pidgeot is more just annoying and just boring to play against because it's not unique. I feel like I could tell you what you're quick searching for every time you go to quick search. I don't even know what your hand is. But like Dusknoir, it's like, all right, at least you gotta think, and you could potentially misplay and put the damage counters on the wrong Pokemon, something like that. Maybe you should have Dusclops, not Dusknoir. You should have done it a little faster. You know, like this. Dusknoir makes this deck, I think, more versatile and creates more of a unique playstyle for players, and that's why I think I like this build more on top of its better matchup spread.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Solid list. Very solid
list.
Word.
Definitely give it a shot.
On to number 6, we got Iron Thorns, one of my favorites ever. Love this.
Absolutely.
I love like going from the other decks. Like, look how small the cards are, because there's like 800 different cards. You go to the Iron Thorns, 2.5 rows. It's perfect. It's crisp. She works. I love Prime Catcher over Legacy Energy, and like I was on stream playing it one time, and one of my viewers made a really good point about it. She was like, look. And I think she said Tricky Jim had a long discussion about it too, and I think it's important to know that, because people are like, oh, play Legacy Energy, so you're forced to go through 4 Iron Thorns. And a viewer really worded it well, and I think helped me finalize the thought I was having, where it's like, if they could go through 3 Iron Thorns, they're going to go through 4 so easily at that point. Like, you're already kind of cooked if you're not pennying up, and like you've lost 3 Iron Thorns, you're losing regardless. So if you just play Prime Catcher and take that more aggressive route to chase down Pokemon that can attack, might be threatening once they find their Canceling Clone and use an energy, maybe gust around annoying walls. Like I think this deck cooks with Prime Catcher. I like it a lot. I think one of the few decks that can take it down very consistently. Like when I play Stall, I feel like I have the best times of my life against this deck. I mean, sure, they got 2 Canceling Clones. We've got Misfortune Sisters and Aries. Like, we'll find those as well. And we could just bring them. I mean, if they both get Lost City, it might get a little trickier. But if you could just kind of get rid of their stadium bump while chasing down Colognes, like this deck you could deal with it with Stall. But I'm tangenting. You know what I mean? This deck is just insane.
Yeah. Thorns is one of those decks that, like, when I first saw it, I'm like, yo, this is mad annoying. It's gonna like make the game like it's just not gonna be fun to play against. And then the more I see it, the more I respect it.
Yeah.
It's fun if you're playing it. There's a lot of cards that really get in your opponent's head, and it's like
Hammer.
playing 4 hammers Six
Six?
hammers even
Six?
in one turn will just
Oh my
like
God.
your table's getting flipped. Those long tables at a regional, that man will flip it the whole thing,
Not gonna
and
lie.
he will tell you,
This is
"Find
my
you
number
60."
2. This is my number 2 deck. If I'm not playing stall, here we are. Like I
Yeah,
don't know.
like there's not much you can really say about Thorns because there's not a lot to look at. But
And
it
people
is
are not respecting
something.
it again. After
Yeah.
Worlds, people started to respect it. Now no one cares about it. Regidrago has fallen off, which was a rougher matchup with the Gudras and everything. And now we're seeing Iron Thorns do a lot better. Yeah, this is just always gonna happen. This install, like people hate them, people won't tech for them, and then they'll do great, and then people will care again because it'll take down a regional, and then they'll tech, and then it'll fall off. Like this is gonna always be one of those cycling decks. Always gonna be one of the same builds. And I love it. I think it's great. And I think 3 Lost City, 2 Enhanced Hammer, 4 Crushing Hammer is just the icing on the cake to make this deck insane, but also not make it busted in the sense where like Stall has accompanying Flute and Erica's Invitation. Like at the end of the day, your opponent still has to flip a coin to get rid of energy, and sometimes they're gonna flip 4 heads, sometimes they're gonna flip 4 tails. You know what I mean? Like it's just that's the nature of this deck. So I think this deck is much easier to manage, even if it's a bad matchup for your deck and you didn't necessarily tech for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go into like a tournament, expect like if there's more than 8 Swiss rounds, expect at least 1 Thorns or 1 Stall.
Yeah. Not like both together, but expect to see one of some sort of control. Pidgeot control, Stall, Iron Thorns. Maybe expect to see 1 or 2. I think control is kind of dominant. I mean, we have 3 control-esque decks in the top 7. I think you should expect 2 control-ish matches. And I say ish because Iron Thorns, you can make the argument. It's like got controlling aspects, but it's not like a control deck like Stall or Pidgeot control. But I think you should expect to see a combo of these 3 decks at a massive, massive tournament, like you said, with like 8 or more Swiss rounds. Especially if you're doing well. I think if you're doing well into that tournament, your chances of seeing these decks will also increase because I think these decks are very well positioned to also do well right now.
Yeah, if you are in Top Cut, you're going to see one of the control decks. You are going to see it.
Completely
These
agree.
are, people don't respect it. People aren't teching for it. Like we've said, that you're going to find it, and it's going to be there, and you're going to be upset, and deal with it. Tech for it. Find a card. You have 60 cards. You can cut 1 to deal with these kinds of decks.
Put an extra Cologne, put a Sandshrew, put an extra Switch, put an extra Turo. Turo's great because you can't get rid of it with Avery or anything like that. You know, like it's like a healing card. You know, it's always a good one. There's ways to deal with these decks. You know, it's just, do you want to commit the resources to do it? I honestly think you should. I think we're in a part of the format where you shouldn't do it necessarily for just stall, for just control. But I think if you take a step back, like I know we said at the beginning of the podcast, but now that I'm thinking about it, like you should commit a card or 2 to control decks to deal with them. Whether it's a shred card like Cornerstone Ogerpon, or it's like an extra Turo or something like that. You know, it's just something should be put in your deck to be ready for control.
Yeah. I don't know if you have anything else, but I'm good.
Yeah, word. On to number 7. This is all you. You're the one who's been playing it.
Okay, so confession, I've been playing Zard for like 2 weeks. 2 weeks straight. Haven't touched another
guy's
deck.
a sinner, bro. He's falling
Yes,
apart.
I have defiled. This list is a little different than the one I play. I swapped out the A-Spec for Neo Upper. And the reason I did Neo Upper is because there are some times where if you're playing 5 energy, you can have more than 1 prize, and that's going to ruin you getting more than 1 Zard setup. So being able to quick search for like a Neo Upper and attach that to even Pidgeot for like a late game attacker to get rid of a stadium, because if your opponent's playing something like Tool Jammer, you're going to want to get rid of that.
It makes sense, actually. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And by attaching 2 fire energy, that's 2 manual attachments unless you rare candy into a Zard. And if you're going to rare candy into a Zard, you're probably not going to have an energy on it.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to just keep that Neo Upper specifically for Pidgeot or if you prize more than 1 energy. I don't play Mist or Collapse Stadium, but these are really good additions.
I like Collapsed. I think Collapse is almost necessity because you're playing Rotom, Luminion, and Peasantipity. Because you'll Thornton away 1 into Radiant Charizard, but I feel like you'll usually have 2 in play. So I think Collapsed is a staple for Charizard. Like, that is something I would really... I feel like it's very important to this deck. Limiting its prize liabilities. This isn't necessary, no. Like, you've been playing it for 2 weeks, playing out of your mind. Clearly, it's not necessary. But if I'm playing it, I'm always worried about liabilities, and this deck has a lot of them that are in play every game. And I think Thornton and Collapse Stadium are kind of necessary in my mind for me to play this deck and feel like I'm piloting it well.
Yeah, that's very fair.
Yeah.
But rather than Collapsed, I play Area Zero for the fact that I can buddy Poffin, get 2 Duskull, get some Pidgeys, get some Manders on the bench. So if I get like boss KO to Duskull, I can just put up another one, or I can play 2 Charmander, 2 Pidgeys, 2 Duskulls. There's a lot that you can do, and also have your backups.
What I think
your
is
Rotoms,
interesting
your
about
minions.
that is that's like a different way of playing Collapse, because when they inevitably stadium bump it, then you can just get rid of.
Then you can just get rid of your support.
Crazy.
Exactly.
Wow. Oh my God. Wait. That's good. That's so good.
Play Area Zeros on one of. The rest of the list is actually pretty nice. Playing 2 Zards is kind of iffy, because if you prize 1, you're going to be in a rough spot. You don't want to lose a Zard. Zard, one of the best things that you can do with Zard Pidgeot is swing early into like a support Pokemon and leave it on the bench. Don't let them get rid of it. Swing like 180 into a Rotom, a Fez, a Luminion, or something. Well,
Luminion you would just KO, which is nice, yeah.
Anything that like you can swing into and leave on the board is great, because that sets you up for a Briar play later. And I've gotten multiple 5 prize card turns for swinging into an EX, bossing it up, and then like playing Briar, Dusknoring out a 2-prizer, and then swinging into a 2-prizer for a KO. It's insane the amount of things that you can do with this deck. I didn't like Zard because it was like too good, and I didn't want to I wanted to play my Water Box deck because I liked the archetype, but after playing Zard for a while, it kind of grew on me a little bit. Like, it's one of those decks that, like, it seems really easy to pick up and play, but I was wrong. Like, this deck has, like, it's...
Well, that's why I recommend it for new players so much, because, yes, it's easy to play, and I will stand by that, but the ceiling cap, like, the ceiling level, like, when you play it, you're here, and then when you play it, take time and develop as a player, you are so much better than just any random regular guy who just picks up Zard. Like, that's why I think it's such a good deck for new players, is because it's easy, you can learn the game, it's a powerful deck, and the deck is just naturally strong and will carry you through games. But when you actually learn, like, fine plays, like your Area Zero play, the Briar play you just described, like, you take this deck to another level that a new player wouldn't think of or would it be able to do, and that's why I think this deck is amazing for people, is for exactly that. And I think, yes, it's easy to play, and I think because of that, it's easy to play so people could pick it up and then find like the most fun way in their mind to take new plays and make them consistent, make them happen. Like you said, your 5 prize card turns, like, you do that frequently. You'll text me you did that. You know what I mean? So I think that's why this deck is good, is because it's easy. You can now make amazing plays unique in your own with it.
It's one of, like, if you're gonna pick up the game, Zard is the deck I tell you to play, and if you're a good player, I'm gonna tell you to play Zard.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Exactly as you described. The ceiling is like infinite for plays that you can make with this deck.
Yeah.
It is beyond fun too. Sometimes you'll open up with like Charmander, Pidgeot, Rare Candy, Rotom, Arven, and Candy. Like, those are hands that you'll just find. Every card inside of these decks has a purpose. You're not going to be sitting there with a dead hand like 80% of the time when you're playing Zard. You're not going to be able to say, well, I can't play any cards this turn.
I feel like Zard is one of the most consistent decks I've actually ever seen.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it's longevity, like how much it's always in our top 7s, how much it's always taking down regionals, how much it's always making top cuts, speaks to the longevity, but especially speaks to the consistency of Zard. This might be one of the most consistent decks ever printed. Like I said a while ago when Dusknoir came out, I think its consistency dipped with Dusknoir. That being said, I think it bricked, like, it went from 7% of the time it didn't brick to like 94% of the time it doesn't brick now. Just because I'm saying it dipped does not mean it's big. I think pure Zard was obviously more consistent because you played 3 Charizard EXs, like you said. You played 4 Charmander, you know what I mean? But Dusknoir is also lethal, and cuts have been made to Charizard for Dusknoir for a good reason. But yeah, no, this deck is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed it. And Zard is one of those decks that if somebody sees that you're playing it, even on ladder, they're going to be questioning whether or not they actually want to complete the game. I've Ultra Balled for Zard EX on my second turn, and I've just had people concede immediately. Like, I don't know what it is with this deck specifically, but people don't want to play against it. They want to play against something else. And because Zard is just too powerful.
And I think like, because we're hyping up Zard a lot, I still think it's in the number 7, though. Its matchup spread isn't totally there, like other decks are. Like, this deck gets folded by Stall, this deck gets folded by Control, just period. Raging Bolt has been a problem for this deck. Obviously, Briar helps, but Raging Bolt also plays Briar, you know what I mean? Like, it's a deck that does better into Stage 2 decks. Like, I think a lot of things in the format have learned to prepare and deal with Zard. Like, I think that's Zard's biggest strength and talking point is how much you can build yourself as a player. I think also the single biggest thing that holds Zard back from being like new VMAX and dominating the format as long as it was there, and by dominating it I mean like top deck in the format for like every set it seemed, was Charizard is so beyond linear. It's like, it's not even funny. It's not hard to stick a Cornerstone Ogerpon into your deck and tell Charizard to cope. Like, there's some very easy ways to just destroy Charizard for very minimal amount of cards in whatever deck you're playing, and I think that's something that'll always hold Charizard from being the top 3 every set. Not saying it'll never be the top 3, just it's not always the top 3. And while I think that's bad for this deck, I think that's perfect, and we need stuff like that in the format. Like, I think that's a very healthy way a deck should be. If you're gonna have a deck this cracked, this consistent, this strong, this overpowered, it needs to be very linear so people could just counter it if they care that much.
Yeah, I mean, that's about it. If you're gonna play the game, you gotta expect to play against a Zard.
Oh yeah. Oh my god, yeah. I mean, it's at 9.3% overall play rate. This is, I think, top 3 most played decks in the format right now. Or top 5, top 3 or top 5, something like that. It's up there for sure. And that's because it's a deck that, whether you're new or you're super experienced or you've won Worlds, you can play this deck and win a tournament all the same. I mean, this deck speaks to a lot of people. Also, it's Charizard, and a lot of people just like Charizard. Like my girlfriend, she plays this deck solely because she likes Charmander. And that's it. Like, there's no other reason other than that why she picked it up.
Perfect.
Yeah, Charizard. Good?
Card.
So, for this week again, I know we didn't do it last week, we don't have top rogue decks. I think rogue decks are in one of the worst spots. I think since my channel has been created, rogue decks just as a whole are in the worst spot ever, which we will get into in the second segment of today. I will spend a lot more time talking about that. I had a lot of trouble. I actually did spend like 15 minutes trying to really put together top 3 rogue decks. I haven't spent enough time playing any one rogue deck in particular. Like, there's a couple I'm like, I could put it here, but it didn't feel right. And the second half of the podcast, we'll get into why I think that is. I'm not saying they don't exist, and I'm not saying rogue decks are trash and not going to win. I am a rogue deck player at core. Like, yes, I'm saying I'll bring Stall to tournaments. Honestly, if it really came down to it and a regional was tomorrow, I'd say I'd play Stall, and then at 3 I'd be like, oh, actually, I'm switching to this random EX that no one knew was printed. Like, I also only believe in rogue decks. But I digress. Like, I'll get into that after. Top tech cards is what this page is.
Yeah, has much really changed? I mean, you have Fez if something gets knocked out by damage. Temple of Sinnoh is great because of how good Lugia is coming out.
And also, there's a lot of decks that are playing DT, too. Like, if you look at our top 7, I'm just going to fly through it real quick. Raging Bolt, no special energy. Stall, obviously no special energy. That's the one playing Temple of Sinnoh. Lugia V-Star, self-explanatory. Pidgeot Control relies on 3 double turbo energies. Dragapult, Dusknoir can play Sparkling Crystal. Some people, like, not many anymore. Upper energy exists. You said you played in your Charizard deck. Temple of Sinnoh shuts that down. Iron Thorns obviously relies around 4 double turbo energies. Charizard Pidgeot plays the Mist energy, plays Neo upper energy sometimes like you do. Like, there's a lot of decks, and there's a lot more not in this top 7 that use special energy. So I think Temple of Sinnoh is, like, not just a Lugia counter, but actually not a bad one of... If you just need a stadium and you have no idea what to do, and you don't need, like, Artisan or something like that to help with consistency, I think Temple of Sinnoh, or I guess Lost City, but that's a little harder because that could screw you over. I think Temple of Sinnoh is a stadium you should really look into.
Yeah, just shutting down your opponent's special energy can leave them in such a awkward spot.
Yeah.
And just mess them up completely.
Oh, yeah. Past that, like you said, nothing really changed from the last podcast. This stuff is very self-explanatory. I think Control is in an amazing spot right now, and Control decks play Mimikyu, Ogerpon, Noivern, and Farigiraf you could throw there all the same. Like, all of those cards lock so many decks. They do well. Neutralization Zone, I think, is probably the most fun A-Spec to, like, randomly beat opponents because they have nothing they can do.
Yeah.
I think Sandshrew is the best tech card out right now because of Control's popularity. Just shutting down Silene and Palpad, like, solos Control decks. I think Sandshrew is an amazing one of. Obviously, Pidgeot can KO it and make it a little trickier. But, like, stall, you put Sandshrew down and your stall matchup, like that and Spiritomb, can really help a stall matchup a lot.
Yeah, Sandshrew, like, look at he's just a little guy.
Yeah.
And he tells your opponent no.
Yeah, he's
That's
adorable.
what I like the most.
Yep. So, yeah, that's the tech cards. You good? You want to move on? This is
Oh yeah, I'm ready for
the
mental
scariest
anguish.
part of the night for you. So we got Who's That Pokemon? I selected the card today. I spent maybe a minute and a half finding this card, and this might be one of the worst things I'll probably ever do. Are you ready to see the small part of the image?
All right, I'm getting rid of it right now. Oh. That's incredible. All right.
I don't think you understand how large a portion of the card that is.
I'm just gonna
That's
have
my
to
hint.
go on a limb
That's
and
my
say
hint.
it's like Altaria or something. It's got to be one of the cloud Pokemon.
You gotta ask questions card related.
Okay.
Unless
does
you
this
just use a
Pokemon?
guess. What, 3 guesses, 7 questions we'll do tonight?
Yeah, sure.
All
All
right.
right. Question number 1: Can this
Yeah.
Pokemon fly?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know why I had to think about that. Yeah, it can fly. I was like, wait, what? Like, wait, that's not a card question. You cheater.
Does the card have art of the Pokemon flying?
Are you? All right, whatever. Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Oh, well,
Incredible.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. I don't really think about it. I don't know. Yeah, it flies. That's a question. It's fine.
Is it in the top 7 decks that we went through?
Can I, like, flip back real quick? I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
That's a good one. I love that question. Is it in the top 7 decks? Have I played this card? Like, those are my favorite ones to ask.
I was just about to ask, is this in any of your videos?
No, I don't think so. Like 94.3% certain that it's not.
All right.
But there, like, if it is, I'm sorry, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not gonna flip through every video to make sure.
I don't think so.
Is this Pokemon a support Pokemon?
No. Question mark? I need to look it up again. Like a support Pokemon card?
Yeah, like, does it help you draw, things like that?
Nah, I don't think so. I'm double checking now though, because I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, because that would be rude. Nah, definitely not.
Okay. Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet?
Let me go back to the thing again. Sword Shield. What's that?
Oh.
You said it flies. I don't remember what. Scarlet Violet, not a support Pokemon. No, it's not in my video. Top 7. You're at 5 questions. You got 2 more questions.
Mm-hmm. Damn.
I believe in you. I'm so sorry.
Is the Pokemon's typing something that wasn't in base set?
Wait, say that again.
Like, is the typing for this Pokemon one that was introduced, like, after Black and White, or was the typing, like, pre? I don't know if that gives it too much away.
Oh, like, is it... So, essentially, like, it's not a fairy Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not. Its typing was in Black and White. Like, and earlier, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Okay.
Yo, you typing these? You looking up cards? Honestly, I wouldn't even... like, whatever.
Listen, if you want to see my screen, I just have a
bro,
notepad with the
I don't
question.
care. If you're gonna cheat. This is a image. Like this. I cooked with this one.
I got better. I'm not going to cheat. Who's that Pokemon? I'm gonna
I
have
told
fun.
you, up there with Ditto. I don't think I lied.
You did not. I'm staring at a picture. This is certainly one of the Pokemon ever made.
Yes, it is. I'll give you a hint. The Pokemon is the color white on it.
Dude, what? No way.
I know. Crazy hint. It is in fact a white Pokemon. Or like has it on it.
Now I don't know what to ask next.
And because this is so devious, when you use 2 guesses, because I'm confident I'm gonna make it through 2 guesses, I will give you one more hint.
Okay.
It's like a 2-part hint, but one of the parts of the hint is like utterly useless because I actually own this card as like part of the hint, which is why I was like, it's whatever. Like I know this card existed from beforehand for like 0 reason.
Is this an illustration rare or normal art?
Neither.
Actually, that doesn't even matter. Huh?
Neither.
Oh, okay.
I think that helps you if you understand what way that is taken. That actually could be huge. It's actually neither. Like, I'm not even kidding. You ready for your guesses? I believe in you. You can do this. Also, let me know in the comments if you're guessing these Pokemon as well when we go through this. Like, I'm curious if you guys sit here and try to figure out what card we've got, too. And I'm very curious if someone got this card. I feel like the only way you would know this card, if anyone guessed it, is if you knew it existed before this video. Like, there's a chance you've never seen this card that I just selected tonight. But after last podcast, I had to get revenge for that. That alone, Executor, was crazy.
I'm staring to see if I can find like anything clueless, like maybe just like a tiny line, but I'm seeing nothing.
Top left is a slightly different shade of white.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah. Maybe I was a little too harsh on this one.
Again, is this was for head? Like, is this just Mew?
I like that though. That was good. That was good. No,
it's not that.
Remember, I meant to be, and for my viewers as well, I didn't mean to do Avery this dirty. I meant to do Josh this dirty, but sadly, Josh wasn't here, and I really wanted to use this card.
Now
so
I gotta.
Avery,
Now I gotta
Avery's got to deal with it.
I'm gonna get his ass next time. I promise you. Listen. I'm gonna make sure that I pick a card.
Nah, because I'm gonna see the shade of a random card like this and be like, oh yeah, nah, it's like gulping, bro.
So it's not an illustration or a regular art. So like,
no.
The only other thing I'm thinking is it's like on a trainer card, but then I'd have to figure out what trainer cards would have Pokemon in them, and that's a whole doozy.
It's not.
Okay, so
that's actually so funny though. I didn't even think about that. Going to like the full art trainers, and you know what I mean? Like that's actually a really funny way to go about it, huh? I don't know if he said that was legal, but we should mess with Josh next time because I know he's not gonna watch this.
I'm doing that to him. He's gonna find out one way. I'm gonna say, nah, you thought it was Swablu. Guess what? It's Professor's research. It's Professor's research. All right, hold that. Hold that.
That's mad funny. It'd really be your own who don't even watch these videos. It'd be the main host who don't even at least watch the podcast he missed.
Curveball. Could it be Sylveon?
I love that guess. It's not Sylveon. Actually, wow, that's an amazing guess. That one was out of left field. I like it. I like it a lot. It's not a fairy type. I'll give you that guess back. I told you it's not a fairy type.
Oh, true.
Yeah, that one didn't count, but that was good. That was good. Because you did ask that question. I don't know what else came out after Black and White. Is it literally just fairy type?
Fairy type and dragon came out in Black and White.
Oh, crap. Wait, Dragon didn't exist beforehand?
No,
I thought
it
it
came
did
out.
because Dragonite and stuff. Oh, crap. All right, it's a Dragon-type Pokemon. I might have cheated a little bit. So I'll just tell you that. It's a
No,
Dragon-type
it's fine.
Pokemon. That's my bad. That's my fault.
Is it like Latios or Latios? Latios?
It's not. Love those guesses, too.
The only thing I'm thinking that's like full white, that's like that typing is like the Swablu Altaria line, and that's like my guess, Altaria.
Is that the lock on the third and final guess?
That's the lock.
Can I give you one more hint that's as busted a hint as possible to try and give you this as best as I can?
Sure.
So when you asked if it was in the black and white era, I said yes because it is in the black and white era. And it is probably, I guess now, one of the first dragon types that ever would have been fully revealed.
Is this Reshiram?
You should flip over the card.
No, stop. Oh. I would not have gotten that if you didn't tell me that. So you got me.
Yeah.
You definitely got me.
Bro, this portion is the whole wig. Like, I just picked the whole thing except the nails and said, nah, we're balling.
Oh. You said like one of the first dragon types. I'm thinking because N's Reshiram is getting printed.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? That might be it. Gotta be
Yeah.
it. That was a really, you got me. You definitely got me with that one. Oh,
Well, because I saw Reshiram V, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's tough. And then I'm like, wait, the full art of this is so plain, it's not even funny. I'm like, the full, because the V, the regular art has fire in it, and I'm like, fire in a white Pokemon. You'll probably get to Reshiram, because there's not many all-white Pokemon that would have fire, like, effects in the card.
Yeah.
But then I own the full art version in real life, so I'm like, oh, you know, it would be funny. Like, I know this card is so plain, like, I might as well just do this. I was tempted to use the background, but if you had this card in real life, I feel like you would have got the background instantly off this, because it's got a pretty unique background colorway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And that was such a good thing too, because there's a lot of Pokemon that have like white on it. Like I'm thinking Sylveon's belly. I was even thinking like Raging Bolt's neck. For a little bit.
That's
a
good.
good one.
Yeah,
I
this
think
is
it Josh with that one too.
like I said, this is up here with Ditto, I think, for evilest cards I've chosen.
There we go.
Uh-huh.
That was awesome. That was
I live in
awesome.
the
That was a
bulk
lot of fun.
binders. Thank you. I'm glad. On to the final segment of the podcast. If you don't mind, can I have a 2-minute rant real quick before we actually jump into it?
Right ahead.
Hey, so if you don't know and you haven't watched any of my videos, or this is your first video, 1, welcome to the channel. 2, watch my other videos. 3, thank you for watching my other videos if you have. If you watch the recent ones, I recently got an affiliate code from TCG Player. I'm going to keep it 100% honest with you guys because I try to do that with everything on my channel. This code doesn't really help you as an individual out. Like, it's not a discount code for you. I'm just not popular enough for that, so let's get me there so I can actually help y'all and get y'all some discounts on whatever place we want. But right now it does help the channel and help support the channel and keep me afloat, keep me going, keep the just everything running smoothly in a small way. And all you have to do, because I know you're going on TCG Player, if you made it this far in a Pokemon podcast, I know you buy singles for your deck or whatever. You just buy straight 60s like Jose. So why don't you click on my link in the description down below and then buy singles within 48 hours of clicking my link so you support the channel in a small way because it's my affiliate code. And that would be epic, and I would love you so much if you did that. So thank you for that ad. I appreciate you. Anyways, back to the second segment.
All right. Where do we want to start? We can talk about the state of the game.
I thought we would just talk about cards we hated that were printed in the standard format right now and just let some emotions off our chest. Because I don't think we've actually done that in a segment of the podcast. And I feel like it's not a podcast unless we've complained about the game at one point. So I feel like we might as well do it tonight.
Especially me. I like to yap about how annoying this game is sometimes. And I think that, honestly, this has been one of the least enjoyable times I've had for Pokemon. I legitimately didn't go to my locals this week. I didn't go to third. I was thinking about it on Saturday. Like, I could go down there and have some fun. And then I realized, oh, half the format just doesn't make me want to play. I just stayed home.
No,
I thought about it for like 2 seconds. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be fun. I can bring Water Box. And then I realized, oh, it's a rogue deck. Those things are dead now. It's not worth it. I'm better off just waiting until November to get the Charizard EX Premium Battle Deck and swapping out like 2 or 3 cards for whatever's new.
Yeah.
And one of the worst things that they ever did was they just decided that Dusknoir, like the whole Dusclops line, it seems like it's overplayed too much with like negativity, but it is genuinely one of the most unhealthy things for this game.
I agree.
I have personally been playing the TCG, not as competitively from Black and White until like X and Y, but X and Y to like 2016 format is my favorite format. That might be biased because it was the one I started with.
Yeah,
but it was
that's fair.
legitimately one of the most fun times I had playing Pokemon.
Yeah.
I could go to a locals and there would be 30 people all running a different deck. You could look at regionals. Like the top most played deck is at like 10% maybe.
Mm-hmm.
The game has absolutely gone on a decline. And I blame a lot of it on late Sun and Moon. I feel like early Sun and Moon was fun too. GXs were cool. It's the same thing as the EXs we have now. You evolved into them.
Which
but
is
they
good.
weren't-
I like that.
Yeah,
I
which
like
is
that
really
step
good.
back into where I feel like a lot of people think the format was, or just the game as a whole was healthier.
Yeah.
So I think that is a good step Pokemon took.
But one of the things that they did was when they had Megas, you had to attach a tool because if you didn't, you lost your turn when you Mega Evolved.
Yep.
And that was one of those things that kept it at a stalemate because you would have to find that Spirit Link if you wanted any chance of being able to like live during that
Yeah.
turn. And the game has went from Pokemon being able to tank a hit or two and healing cards being actually something that people thought about.
I miss healing
Into-
decks.
Yeah, because now it's like, okay, well, if I'm not blowing up your active, I just lose. And I made a comment, yeah, legitimately Raging Bolt. And I
Yeah.
made a comment about it on Twitter, and I think a lot of people were upset that I made that comment because they were like, well, yeah, you know what? I try and take my prizes in the least efficient way possible just to be like annoying. But my whole point was Pokemon used to be a game that you could sit down and play for a little bit. Games used to take that 30 minutes unless you're playing against a stall or a mirror match. I played tcg1.com. I was playing old format. I was playing Mega Gardevoir. And that game was like 15 turns for each of us. It was a game that went back and forth, back and forth. It wasn't a 2-4-6.
Yeah, you're
Games
using the full
nowadays-
50 minutes for like maybe a
Yeah.
game. You know, you're using 40 of those minutes. Yeah.
And people think Gardevoir is slow. That's just how fast the game's. That's just like the normal pace that they used to go.
Yeah.
You had Greninja Break, which was essentially a stage 3 deck where you had to evolve into Greninja and then get the Greninja Break. And then you had to make sure that you had your bench ones get evolved. The game has gone way too fast.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Games
taking
are
the
over in
game
6 turns.
Exactly.
Like, and that's a long game. Is like 6 turns of Raging Bolt.
Yeah, your games are. It's just you're sitting down and you're getting up within 5 minutes to go and hang out with your friends. Like when we went to regionals, like we would be at the one corner we would sit at within like 10 minutes, and there would still be like 40 minutes. We'd have time to walk around, go to vendors, buy singles.
Yeah, we did.
Sit in those long lines.
Uh-huh.
And it's just like I kind of miss when games used to be like you sat down, you chatted, you had a bunch of time to like think about plays and stuff. They're like the Pokemon got stronger, the trainer cards got weaker is some way I've put in it.
Well,
Because
see, I feel like that's hard too because I feel like now there's no trainers that are like mid. Like I don't think trainer cards have gotten weaker. I think trainer cards have actually gotten so cracked that if they're not absolutely busted, they're completely useless. If that makes sense.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
because you have, you're gonna tell me Briar and stuff isn't disgusting, and Crispin and Arvin, specifically in tandem with Buddy Poffin and Forest Hill Stone, but those are cards that are also cracked in their own regard. Like I think trainers as a whole are insane. And if they're not, like how many decks play Arezu? Search for 3 non-Roblox evolution Pokemon. But if you put that card in that format that you just said you loved, think about how many decks would have done infinitely better with that card. Whereas now it's only in trash decks. So I think now it's like trainer cards have to be disgusting and so overpowered or they are useless and there's nothing you could do.
Yeah, I was more so thinking about like item cards and their effects, like top 4, whatever trainer you want, things like bringing a supporter instantly from the discard.
Yeah.
But you made a really good point. Trainer cards nowadays have to be the best cards, or else they're not going to get put in a deck. Look at the decks that we're playing with now. They're all like the same, almost the same trainer cards.
The only way to make
good.
these decks better trainer-wise is to play Pokemon Catcher, to flip a coin, because that's the only way it could get more efficient. Obviously, it's not, because you're flipping a coin, but that's just how good the decks are now, is the coin flip cards are actually the best one, like, the more optimal versions to take, because it's just, you might as well, and yeah. Uh-huh.
It seems like Pokemon have really like we're still giving they're making a lot of choices, at least for me, that don't make me want to play the game as much.
That's fair.
It's like I don't want to go and like have my Baxcalibur get Dusknored and then Dragapulted. Like that's just not fun because now I got to sit here for 2 turns and only manual attach 1 or beg for Palkia.
Yeah.
That's not fun. A lot of rogue decks that relied on evolving your Pokemon have fallen short because you just rare candy Pidgeot for Dusknor, and then you have a rare candy or Arven in hand, Arven for rare candy, get a 4 Seal Stone, and then guess what? You're cooking. A lot of things have fallen short just because they decided to make that one card, and they could have made it so much more fair. If Dusknor was your opponent takes 2 prizes if you knock it out, that would have been so much more fair and balanced for the game. Because like a 2-for-2 prize trade, I like that. That's honest. But 1 prize and putting 130 anywhere, and that's not something that like can just be blocked. That's like almost guaranteed.
B-Barrel, which was such a staple engine for so long, and now it doesn't exist. Like it's just, and I think that brought me into. I don't agree with that statement, but hear me out before, because I don't completely disagree either. I have been getting into the game, and you would know better than probably almost anyone watching. I have, like as an individual, gotten so much more into the competitive side of this game over the past 2 years specifically. Like since Hartford, like I feel like as a competitive player tried to get better and better and better myself and better my knowledge and just me piloting decks, creating decks, all that. I think I'm at a similar point where it's like I'm getting almost turned off from the game, but not the game as a whole. Like you said, I think the competitive side of it. I think that, yes, cards are disgustingly overpowered like Dusknoir, and I think Pidgeot is... I don't see a reason why Pidgeot needed to be printed. I mean, people complained about Arceus for Starbirth when it was printed, including me, and now Starbirth is a mid-ability because Pidgeot exists, and it's just 400 times better because you can use it every turn. But, where I was going with this, sorry, I think also the rogue decks have gotten infinitely more fun. Like look at Mousehold EX, look at Spidops EX, look at the Kofu box. So, there's a lot more fun gimmick and meme decks out there. They just don't hang at the competitive level because they can't hang with Dusknoir, they can't hang with Briar, they can't use Crispin the way Dragapult can perfectly. So I think for me, it's not so much that I'm turned off from the game as a whole. I'm just completely turned away from the competitive scene. And I feel like a lot of people who watch my videos get so pressed when I take a deck on the casual ladder. But I think for me, like, there's so many fun rogue decks that I don't care about playing competitively anymore. I feel like for the first time since I've gotten ultra competitive, I'm taking a step back and being like, dude, the rogue decks are actually so much fun right now. Yes, they're trash, but who cares? Like, I don't really want to go to locals and sweat my locals tournaments. I don't really care about points. I'd rather invite my buddies like you guys over to my apartment and play a bunch of piles together, because it's so much fun when we know one guy's playing Garchomp, one guy's playing Mousehold, one guy's playing Dialga, one guy's playing your water box, whatever that is, because it is not a Chiempao deck. You know what I mean? Like, that to me...
It's no longer.
No, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, I think there's so much ability to be creative now that I feel like just... old formats, and I also didn't play in them as much, but I don't know as much about them, so part of it is also probably because I'm playing in them now. I think, but that's what I mean, though. It's like the competitive scene, I feel like, is kind of trash right now. Like, I really don't enjoy it as much, but the casual play of the game, I feel like, is also at an all-time high if you have a group that can do it and match that with you. You know what I mean? Like, when you, me, Rich, Aaron, and Josh are in a Discord call together, and we're just playing against each other, and I'm playing Wigglytuff EX against your, like, you know, whatever, your Galvantula deck or something ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's like, those are some of the most fun times I have playing this game. And that's because there's so many different cards out right now, and it's fun. It's just, they're not competitive. So
that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like Future Box is a fun deck to play.
Yes, exactly. Trash deck, though. Like, oh my god, it's just not good right now. And I'm not saying you can't take Future Box and win a regional. I'm not saying the deck is the worst thing to ever exist. I'm just saying if it was amazing, people would play it into tournaments more frequently. But they don't, because it just doesn't hang. It's not as fast as Raging Bull. It's not as strong as Raging Bull. And it's not as tanky as Raging Bull. So there's just a better turbo deck to play, but that doesn't mean it's not fun. That doesn't mean you and me aren't going to go head-to-head when I play Mousehold EX with Deluxe Bomb. You know, like, it's just, yeah.
Pokemon seems to want to know what decks they want to make good. And they seem to, like, have ideas in the future for competitive, but they also lost a lot of casual, like, with that, because they just print cards, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like, they want GinJ EX to be good. They're going to make a card for GinJ EX in the future that makes it good. They're just not doing it right now.
But that's what they have to do at this point to make a card good, is they have to print a card to specifically just buff a whole deck and make it cracked. And I feel like that speaks to how unhealthy the competitive scene is. I think if you've got a good group to just play rogue decks, like, honestly, I've been thinking about, because I've also been trying to just get back into, like, this as my hobby and stuff, because I've actually finally finished my midterms and everything. I was thinking about seeing if it's possible on Limitless to create a rogue deck only tournament, where you cannot join with X decks that I'll list. You know what I mean? Like, just because I feel like the casual part of the game is so much fun right now and it's so enjoyable. I think it needs a scenario where that's all you can do. You know, you're not taking your I'll go back to Mousehold. You know you're not taking your Mousehold deck into Raging Bolt, because it's just not going to go well. Or Charizard EX. I mean, Charizard EX actually can hang, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, you get what I'm saying with it.
Yeah. We want the game to be at a fun spot. Yeah. Especially for me, because I grew in love with this game for so long. I've been around for a while, and I've seen this game. Like, I joined but, like, when you look at the whole history of the game design and such like that, you'll see a lot, like, you know, early X and Y, there were some busted cards like Seismitoad, which is literally just Finette now. You would see cards that are like Yveltal EX, Mewtwo EX, which is like 20 for each energy on both active Pokemon. That would be garbage now. That would be the worst card ever printed. That'd be a rogue deck.
Shaman EX. Yeah. The best support Pokemon ever. Hot garbage now.
Absolutely. Like, oh yeah, I get to draw on 5/6, but it only has 110 HP. It's gone.
Dusknoir, good night. Like, what?
Yeah, like, congratulations, you win.
You played 2 Dusknoir, took 4 prize cards off my double Shaman. Like, oh, yeah.
Awesome, that's fun. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, you played Briar, guess what? And that's another thing. You're winning the game way too quick. Go back on that. Like, I shouldn't be sitting here looking at my opponent's board state and thinking, I just need one more piece to get a 5 prize card turn. That is unheard of. That is ridiculous.
Unless you're playing the Lunala from Celebrations, in which case, that's fair. Like,
unless you're playing from Celebrations.
Yeah, like that, or Miss Magius, where you spread 2 damage counters every turn, or you're playing Serena EX. Like, there are cards where you could say that, and I'm like, no, you deserve this. But Charizard should not be the one saying that. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
and even in Sword and Shield, like, I didn't really find that much enjoyment in the competitive aspect.
I feel like it ebbed and flowed, and I think right now we're in a big dip for the game, and I think it'll come back, because, look, I'm not gonna lie, this summer I feel like we had the most fun we've probably ever, like, one of the most fun times we've ever had was this summer playing, and getting more into it, and I think this reminds me of, I'm not saying this is the Silver Tempest format. It's not. There's not one deck that's destroying it. But in terms of competitive enjoyment, I'm having about as much fun as I did during Silver Tempest. Not because there's a Lugia that's dominating everything and 90% of people are playing, like, a deck. There's still a lot of versatility, which is proof to me that we are making strides, because it's also been a much longer time. Like, we went from Pika Rom, and then a year and a half later or so, we've got Silver Tempest. Or maybe I messed up that math, but you know what I mean? Like, or no, because we went Fusion Strike, which was bad because Mew, and then we went Silver Tempest. Like, I feel like we were every other set. We're in a miserable competitive time. I feel like it's legitimately been a good year and a half or so, 2 years, since it's been a trash set. Like, I think Silver Tempest was the last trash format. I think this one, I don't know if it's trash because it's more versatile, but it's pretty boring, I feel like. And I would hope honestly that this increases. You know, now we go another long duration of time, and then the next set where it's boring and more stale, it's in a slightly better spot than this set, which is in a better spot than Silver Tempest, and so on and so forth.
From the leaks of cards I've seen, the game is probably going to be at the same state it is now for a little bit.
Because there's a lot of things. I haven't even looked into stuff. Yeah.
if I would encourage, like, take a look at some of these cards. I mean, you have like a Gastrodon that's like, oh, stage 2 Pokemon
Oh, I saw
on your
that.
bench
I saw
can't do anything.
all of the cards I've seen that are leaked are the ones you've sent in the Discord. So if you haven't sent
Yeah.
it in the Discord, I haven't sent. Like Gastrodon, I've seen. There's one other one. Oh my god, I'm blanking on it. But you sent another card, I think, 2 weeks ago, because Gastrodon was last week. But like those I know, but only because you send them, and I look at your messages more than I look into.
It was
cards.
the Amulet of Hope.
That was it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Ace Spec Tool. If you get
The
knocked out,
Jirachi.
you pick 3 cards. Okay, put that on Jirachi, and now you get to take 6 cards, whatever
or
you
put
want.
it.
Like
You have Jirachi and Ogerpon with that tool, and it's like, well, you're giving me 3, but how? Like,
yeah, and the thing like Gastrodon is that completely takes me out of the game. I can't play my deck because I'm not going to be able to use Bax Caliber.
yeah, but
Like,
it's not
okay,
even meant for
cool.
that. It's also meant for
Yeah.
just Pidgeot. Which
Pidgeot,
is,
it's a Pidgeot counter.
Yeah.
Way too late for them to print a Pidgeot counter, in my opinion. And it's gonna screw over a lot of other decks just for existing. You're not gonna play this to attack with it. You're gonna play it to have it on the bench. You could be playing an
Pidgeot
entirely
control.
different type. Yeah.
Pidgeot control will play it.
There it is.
Yep.
To have to put something in the active to use its ability, like I'm not gonna switch into backs and attach my energy and then retreat out. Like that's just not gonna happen.
No.
I'm going to have to figure out a way
You're gonna
around
have to
that.
play around Palkia so much more in
Yeah.
terms of water box. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wish the Pokemon like card, however they work on printing new cards, I wish they legitimately took input from the fan base more. Because I feel like a lot of people have these rants and tangents with friends and stuff where it's like they don't like X cards printed, and sure, maybe we've got some hot takes and we don't like certain cards printed that you're like, well, actually I really like Dusknoir and I think it's like fair for the format, and we'll definitely disagree with you, but I'm not saying we're correct or you're correct. But I think there's an
100%.
overall consensus where certain cards, like when Battle VIP Pass, everyone played it, everyone won Worlds with it, and everyone also said it should have never been printed. Like, I think there's an overall consensus where people are like, this card is too overpowered. And a lot of people agree with that, with X cards. And I think like Pidgeot's one of those I see a lot of people complaining about. Dusknoir is one of those I see a lot of people complaining about. I think not due to one of these cards' faults, but Dragapult doing 6 damage counters to bench at the same time where Buddy Buddy Poffin is our way to get out basics to evolve and needing 70. Now we're in a spot where if you have 60 HP or less, Dragapult destroys you, and if you have 80 HP or more, you can't even get Pokemon in play. So it's like if a Pokemon is not printed with 70 HP on a basic form of it, Pokemon does not care about that deck and it's not going to be good, and that's proof. Like Torterra could be amazing if you had a 70 HP Grotto, but you don't. And I think like that's also if you look at decks like what is it? What has 60 HP and is like correct? There's a bunch of cards that have like 60 HP. Toadscruel. If there's a 70 HP Toadscruel would be Toadscruel would be insane if there's a 70 HP Toadscruel. But there's not. There's only 60 HP, so you get destroyed by Dragapult in the early game. Yeah. Thanks for the TED Talk. That.
No, you're good. Like, we used to go from, okay, this Pokemon has 60 HP, that's gonna be problematic to go against Dragapult. To now, okay, if my support Pokemon isn't a tank, I'm going to have problems with being able to play the game.
Yeah, if my Stage 2 support Pokemon also has less than 70 HP, I'm cooked. And if it has more, I'm not even gonna get it out. Like, that's insane to work around. And there only is one thing that can do that. It's Pidgeot. Like, yeah.
Pidgeot was a mistake, and that's probably the biggest. That's the most egregious one that is played more often.
I agree.
We had a quick search Pidgeot in the past. It was like mid Wizards of the Coast and beyond.
Yeah.
And I think we had one in between Diamond and Pearl and X and Y. I don't want to confirm that, but I think we had a quick search one.
Yeah.
Again, it wasn't even that big of a deal. No one played it. But now, because of how decks are nowadays, and how fast and aggro,
Rotom, like it's just
there you go.
Yeah.
The game has just become like a lot of turns and stuff like that. Just feel so predictable, and you can just tell when like you might as well just scoop and just move on.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I don't appreciate that. I
know
like
I'll lose the
Dusknoir.
Charizard by the second turn of the game. I know that I'll predict our next 4 turns play for play because I know how I'm going to try to play and I know I'm cooked. That shouldn't, I feel like, be the case for maybe you have a matchup where you just kind of know in turn 2, and that's okay. There's not necessarily a problem with that. The problem is when you can do that thing, like, you know, predicting that well, like 8 matches in a row and lose all 8 of them. You know, it's like that's where we get problematic.
Yeah. Games too fast. Games are determined by cards that aren't even swinging. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Things like you want the game to be like you want to attack and do the damage. Now you're just doing it from effects of attacks or just abilities, and that just makes the game so much more annoying to play into.
Yeah.
Things like Dusknoir, like I sound like a broken record when I say Dusknoir, but I think that is legitimately one of the worst cards they've ever made. Every time they print a Dusknoir, it's always good. But the old ones, every Dusknoir before this has been niche.
I think there's multiple ways they could have gone around this Dusknoir and making it better. One of them could have been like, 2 prize cards for it getting KO'd and 1 prize card for Dusclops, like it still is. I think another way, because I was trying to think of other ways, like, okay, what are other fun ways? Maybe if it couldn't just fit in every deck, maybe it's still 1 prize card, but it's like you need only Psychic Pokemon in play. So essentially Gardevoir could use it, but Gardevoir would never use a Dusknoir line. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to get a little crazy with the Gardevoir deck, or some other like crazy psychic deck like Alakazam or something, like you'd have to really experiment and have fun with it. Like that would be fine. But Dragapult, Charizard, Pidgeot Control, like there's so many decks that could easily run. If you play Rare Candy, which is like 40% of decks, you play Dusknoir and you play Pidgeot, and there's almost no way around that at this point.
And that's another card I wanted to talk about just for a brief moment. Rare Candy, I think it is way too relied on nowadays.
But I don't think it's Rare Candy's fault. Because Rare Candy's always existed. It's like Professor's Research. There's never been a format where Rare Candy didn't exist. I think Rare Candy's problematic because there's so many just search for item or search for any card in your deck. Between Noctowl searching for trainers, you got Arven searching for items, you got Pidgeot searching for anything. Like there's too many search for Rare Candy instantly cards.
Yeah, and it's because Pokemon is making Stage 2 Pokemon amazing. We need either a format where they make Stage 1s and basics as good as Stage 2s like they are now, or we just play a format without Rare Candy. And I think that would make the game a little bit slower, it'd make turns a little bit more methodical, it would make the game flow a little bit better, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. I think I brought it up in another episode at some point where it's like, I kind of wish Pokemon did a thing where, let's say there's 7 cards that are busted in a set right now, and that's like, and I mean busted, like Briar, Charizard EX, Pidgeot level busted. And then in the next set there's 6, and then in the next set there's 5, and they're decreasing the amount of busted cards and increasing the amount of like Toadscroll EX type cards, where it's not busted, but it is totally competitively viable. You know what I mean? Because I feel like only once you start doing that and you slowly start almost like weaning us off as if it was like a medication. You know what I mean? Like, so we're not just in a withdrawal period where a set is trash because there's no great cards. That would be bad. That would be really bad for the game and just it as a business as a whole. But slowly wean us off and give us more and more mellowed out cards. And it wouldn't be a quick thing. It would take a rotation or two for it to really have gone into full effect. But at the end of the day, it's only 2 years. It's not that long a time. This game is not dying in 2 years. That's for certain.
Hopefully.
I mean, I think Pokemon is too big a just company for it to die completely in 2 years.
I don't want to get into controversy, but I think if they keep going the way that they're going as far as like support goes, that's going to be a problem. People are going to stop attending events.
Yeah, but I feel like it's still a fun game, so people will still play it in like living rooms and stuff, but just the competitive scene will have to be revamped. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of what would happen. But I can't see myself putting this game down in 2 years. I could see a world where I don't care to go to a single regional in 2 years. I mean, hell, I could see that world coming to light, like, January. You know what I mean? Like, that's a very real possibility. I cannot see myself putting this game down as a whole. I think this game is fun. I think even the trash decks, they're so much fun to play. They're just not competitively there. And that's okay. Like, if that's how Pokemon, if that's a thing they're willing to cope with, and people will move to other card games if the competitive scene gets that bad. If that's something they're willing to accept, then hey, what do we know? We're also not the ones making cards, so maybe there is something we're not seeing from a business or, I don't know, like ultra high looking over down on people like a god standpoint, because we're not the ones making cards.
I also like 2 more things, and then like we can do whatever we want to afterwards. But I want to see power. Yeah,
hour 30.
I want the power creep to be reversed.
That's what I'm saying. With like weaning us off is that right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want Pokemon to get smaller. I want them to do less damage. I want the game to be slower, because that is just more fun. I mean, like we're looking at 430 HP, 440 HP. That like those were fake cards that like were in your friend's binder in 1st grade.
Yeah.
A 430 HP Zard, like what even is that? But
now
we're getting into
EX that exists and has 450.
It just makes the game look so it looks so much different, and I'm looking at it from a completely different light. Yeah. And I like back when I hate to keep talking about the past because I sound like so dumb when I talk about it half the time.
No, I don't think so.
But like when max HP was like 230 and like busted attacks were like 30 for each of your bench, and you like would have to go so
have
do
7
so
shamans
much.
in play.
Yeah. You would have to play Raichu, Stage 1 Raichu, single prizer, DCE on that, 20 for each of your bench. Vespiquen, which was 20 and then 10 more for each Pokemon in your discard pile.
Yeah.
You would play Unknowns to discard them, draw a card. Klefki, you could attach it as a tool.
What are the
discard that. Unknown, it literally just has the ability, if it's on your bench, discard it, draw a card. And there was a Klefki that had the ability that let you attach it as a tool.
Oh, I know the Klefki. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah. That's cool.
Things like that were fun. Even like Megazord X and Y were fun decks to play at a point.
Yeah.
I kind of like just want to go back to that era, and it just like it might just be nostalgia talking, but I've played a lot of games in that era. I've also played a lot of them now, and it just seems like the perfect for me, at least as far as like game time goes, as far as cards go, as far as like power goes, things like that. It just the game has gotten like I've already said this 8 times. Faster, it's gotten. I don't like taking 5 prize cards in one turn. I don't like taking 4 prize cards. I like taking 2.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, it's totally fun swinging for 1,000 damage sometimes. But to have every deck do that every turn, it's like, well, it's not really that much fun anymore. It's like I'll just play Raging Bull. Exactly. Turns 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Although actually, I only needed 3 turns because I already took 6 prize cards. Like that's. You know, like, if you wanted to do that before, you needed, like, the Blue Eyes White Dragon type of setup. You needed the, what is it called? The, oh my god, why am I blanking? I literally had the thought in my mind from Yu-Gi-Oh! Too. The full suit of whatever it was. Exodia. You needed the full Exodia type setup. It's like, it's a 1 in a million chance that you actually pull it off. You needed that type of setup to do 1,000 damage, get a Pokemon with 1,000 HP. Now it's like, I've got a Charizard EX with, like, 430. What are you gonna do, cope? Like, come on. Yeah, like, I agree. I'm with you, man. I mean, and I also never played in that type of format, but just hearing about it and playing random expanded games with you, like, they're so much fun. You know what I mean? Because both of us are kind of just sitting there, like, duking it out, and the games are super long. I also don't know what any of the cards do, so I have no idea how any one game will end up. But they are so chaotic, and I think they're slower, so it's like, I feel like the chaos is able to seep through in every game because the games are slower. So because of that, there's just more time for random BS to happen.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, like, yes!
Sable IV, like even like a more recent card is Sable IV. I love that card. When that came out, I'm like immediately, I'm like, okay, Crobat line from Phantom Forces. As you evolve, you put damage everywhere, and I was like,
swinging for 8 trillion.
Exactly, and that was fun. That was something that like if I got swung for 1,090 damage at my locals, I'm sitting there and I'm telling my opponent, give me your 60. Right now, I need this.
Well, that's why I liked like Lunala from Celebrations, because you had that last turn of the game, you swung for like 4,000 damage because you just doubled the damage counters. But that took an arm and a leg and 17 test runs to pull off. But you did it once, and you're like, this was it. I've done it. Like, oh man, I love decks like that so much. Yeah. But they don't exist anymore. Do that anymore. You just can't. Yeah. Yep.
It's a go fast. It's like,
yeah,
where did we go?
I feel like it's now just the format revolves around such hyper offense Nothing else matters. There's no healing. All of the defensive decks are seen as like public enemies #1. Like you don't see people like, yeah, Snorlax. You go on Twitter and everyone's like, I hate this deck, should have never been printed. Like all of the defensive decks, everyone despises. Like one that comes to mind for me is Metagross VMAX, quad Metagross VMAX, with the hyper potions and the Cheryls and whatever. Like you were just swinging every turn and full healing every turn, but it's because 330 was an unrealistic number for your opponent to hit in one turn. Whereas now, you stick that deck in this format with all of the healing cards plus some more, it doesn't matter. You're getting one shot. You don't even need more healing cards. You're cooked. So I feel like now the problem is like the power creep has only increased the offensive capabilities of cards and not really the defensive capabilities of cards.
Yeah. There's just no point in playing any healing cards. Like, Pokevital A would have been amazing back in the day. But now it's like, when are you going to be hit for 120, be able to heal that, and it matter enough to where it's like going to save you next turn?
Or I think you're going to get Garganacl. You got a massive 340 HP Pokemon, massive damage reduction, tools to get you through it. However, Garganacl is conveniently weak to grass, and you know what Pokemon is a grass-type attacker that's in every other damn deck? Teal Mask Ogerpon. So it's like, sweet, we've got this awesome, goated defensive card that will never be competitively viable because 40% of decks can instantly OHKO it with your grass attacker that's your draw engine anyways, and the other like 60% of decks either not 60 but like another 40% of decks can just easily hit damage to two-shot it. So it's like you've got this massive defensive deck that's just like, I don't know if it'll ever be competitively viable. Like I can't see a world where it is at this point. But yeah, so it's hard. I feel like it's all aspects. It's kind of falling apart defensively, and I feel like that's why this game has such problems with power creep, because the HP and defensive abilities don't match the offensive capabilities decks have.
Yep, and when defensive abilities exist, they are often
hated. They're hated. Yeah. Quad Thorns, Pidgeot Controls, Snorlax Stomp, despised. And everyone's like, oh, I hate Pidgeot Control the least. And then I feel like they play against a Pidgeot Control deck and they want to like they will punch their monitor in half, or a stall they'll just get off. So it's like, I don't even know if you truly agree with yourself when you say Pidgeot Control is an acceptable control deck. Like, are you sure? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I want the game to be healthier.
Me too.
And it's not even just like healthier for us specifically. I mean, me, like, I'll say it right now. Like, I want the game to be tailored in a way that makes me feel like a player.
Yeah.
But
no, I know what you mean. It's true. Everyone should feel that way. Everyone should feel that way. And if they don't,
I'm
they have to
not asking
reassess
for much. Yeah. I'm not asking for a lot, guys.
You're asking for Gastrodon to have not been printed. There shouldn't have been a world where we needed that Gastrodon. I know it's a defensive ability, but that's not the type of defensive ability I want. I don't want a, like, Gastrodon shut down all stage 2s. I want a deck that has so much damage reduction that it's like you are forced to 3-shot me. And Raging Bull has to 2-shot me, but it's like that would never exist. Like, that can't exist.
But it's also not going to do 300 damage with a shred.
Yeah,
it's going to be a slower attacker, because there's like Pokemon
like Garganacl. I think Garganacl is a perfect example. It's not a strong hitting attacker. It's a pretty slow setup, but my god, once you get it set up, you need to swing so hard to 2-shot the thing. The problem is, like, decks like Raging Bull, Charizard can easily just work around that with Dusknoir plus a swing to put you in 2-shot range, and then next turn they'll just swing for enough. It's like, yeah.
I mean, I think I've gotten everything off my chest.
Word,
I mean,
I'm good too. I mean, we're at like average time for, you know, the pod. Before we officially end and say goodbye, I just wanted to say thank you, Slides Go, for letting me use your presentations. So if you're watching this, like I say on all the other ones, hit me up with that sponsor, because I use these presentations for the podcast. I use them for school projects. They're awesome. If you haven't seen Slides Go check it out. Discord is right here. Twitch is right here, or not Twitch, excuse me. Twitter is right here, and my business email. So if you guys need that, I've also got these links all in the description down below, as well as my TCG player affiliate code. Make sure you give that a click next time you're getting singles anyways. And with that being said, I mean, hey, if you're good, I'm good.
I think I'm good.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much for watching up until this point. Hope to see you guys in the future. Thank you so much for all the support. With that being said, stay epic. Peace.
Peace.